asshole.
Can I get a carrot cake? A whole cake? Isn't that a little cliche? Rabbits, carrots. You know, on second thought, I think I'll get a lemon meringue pie instead.
This thing rules. This thing rules.
Oh, hey, what's up? I'm Brian Altano.
And I'm Max Scoville.
This is a show where we discuss something we love,
Unpack why we love it,
explain where it came from,
try to remember our first impressions of it,
share our weird stories about it,
maybe learn something new about it along the way.
but first and foremost, we're here to celebrate the fact that this thing rules.
Hey, Brian, you want some carrot cake?
No, I don't. Why are we doing this? This is a prank, right? I don't like carrot cake.
No, most people think carrot cake is pretty good. Such as our good friend Kozibear, Alex Kozina. What's up, man? How's it going?
Max, I just want to say I'm just so happy to be doing this podcast with you today. But as evidenced by a couple of comments that were made a second ago, there's a bit of a problem. And that problem is that there is a snake in our midst today. A bald, hairless serpente italiano who has come to ruin our carrot cake fun.
What other?
Hey, Brian.
Hey. First of all, I love you. Thank you for coming to our show. There aren't. The implication is that there are non-bald haired snakes. That's what you just made it sound like. I'm a bald, hairless snake, but we don't have a hairy snake going around.
Actually, there are some Disney movies that have snakes with hair on them. There's that Robin Hood movie with that snake that has hair on it. It's true fact.
I don't like that.
It's a wig. Isn't that a wig or a hat?
No, it's real.
I'll budge on the feathers on dinosaurs, but snakes with hair, I draw the line there.
That was your go-to, a movie made of drawings?
All right. We're here to talk about cakes, not snakes. And Cozy, why is carrot cake so good? You did some research. You prepared this. Let's impress Brian. Let's teach him about this.
Fine.
I have opened in front of me a Google Doc of notes that I took for this episode that is 15 pages long. I got all sorts of carrot cake notes to talk about.
We might not get to all of that.
We definitely won't. I have a whole section about carrot cake themed movies that we'll probably skip over. That'll probably be for Blue Sky and Twitter. Let me answer your question.
Themed, you know what? Sure, just get right into it.
We'll get to it later. Max, you were asking, why is carrot cake so great? The thing is, growing up, I was actually pretty mixed on carrot cake myself for a long time.
Smart kid, gifted child, would have put a bumper sticker on the back of the car.
So here's the thing. Speaking of fathers, my dad was the man in my family that very much loved carrot cake. It was his favorite cake. I distinctly remember when I was 12 or 13 years old, walking up to him and being like, Dad, why do you always insist on having carrot cake whenever it's your birthday or some special occasion? You know, there are so many other more decadent and fancy cakes out there. And I will
delicious is the word.
I will admit that I
good.
Very much for a period of time bought into, the cynical take that so many people have that the only reason why they're enjoying carrot cake is because they falsely assume it must be healthy because it has carrots and, nuts and occasionally pineapple and other fruits and vegetables in it.
It's getting worse.
Don't you like all these foods, Brian? Don't you Italians like pineapple?
Wait, so I should point out you are extremely Canadian,
yes.
Right? Which I assume your father is even somehow more Canadian, right?
Yeah, he's Canadian too. Yeah.
Okay. Canada invented the Hawaiian pizza.
Yes, that's right.
Not
that
Hawaiians.
Is right.
So yeah. I'm just going to, as an Italian, I'm going to put that out there before we talk about how, from your perspective specifically, how great carrot cake is. Also, by the way, this show is called This Thing Rules. I was trapped into this.
And you know what rules?
It's not called
carrot
I Don't
cake.
Like This Thing. Okay, fine. Okay, tell us why carrot cake rules.
Here's the thing, Max. I think if there's a single objective, a single thing that we need to accomplish on this episode, we need to teach Brian why carrot cake rules. We need to bring him over to our side. And I'm going to tell him right now that, honestly, it was maybe only 6 or so years ago that I really came around to loving carrot cake. And part of that was, just growing out of the teenage reptilian part of my brain that hated it for always being my, dad's go-to dessert. Because growing up, it's very common that you will come to resent the kind of things that your parents love. You're like, I don't like that kind of thing, Dad. I like my own new cool thing. But there were a couple of other realizations I had along the way. Realization number one.
It's not why I don't like it.
Even though we all know at the back of our minds that carrot cake isn't actually any more or less healthy than any of the other cakes, we all still sort of treat it as such. Nobody is going to ever give you any grief for enjoying a slice of carrot cake at any hour of the day. You pull out a slice of chocolate cake for breakfast, or you order a red velvet cake at a cafe at 3 p.m., and it's always going to feel a little inconspicuous. But carrot cake is this weird cheat code where nobody is ever going to judge you for it. Realization number 2, cream cheese frosting. Generally, it tastes great. With most desserts it's paired with, but its pairing with carrot cake works especially well. The tangy sweetness of the frosting, I find, just complements the moist earthiness of the cake really well. Whereas with most other cakes, most other desserts, the cream cheese frosting can often feel kind of like a hat on the hat. You're just adding sugar on top of more sugar. It's not a very dynamic flavor pairing. And finally, realization number 3, carrot cake is just one of those desserts, in my opinion, that is always guaranteed to be baseline good. So many other cakes and desserts can be stupendous, but they can always be really shitty and disappointing. The ceiling for how incredible a carrot cake can be is low, but the floor is high. You're always guaranteed to get a decent slice no matter where it's from. It's old people food, but it's also old reliable.
That is so spot on. You nailed it, man.
I don't think the floor is low. I think the floor is lava. I think you shouldn't touch it. I think that should say that on the front of the carrot cake.
You might not like the carrot. You might not like the root vegetable, that Bugs Bunny cigar. You might not like it in the cake. But I will say that it does a lot of heavy lifting in terms of carrying moisture. And I think you know most other cake, if you kind of let it sit around for a while, it's gonna get like dry stale. And I feel like carrot cake gets kind of soggy stale, and I mean that in a good way.
But it had to get good at sitting around for a while because no one was fucking eating it. Like it had to get great at that. You know, it's a bench warmer.
I do wonder though. Like people do banana bread, they do zucchini bread, which is like a similar idea where you're using vegetable fiber to create this this kind of texture.
Yeah.
Why don't people do that with? I guess would a zucchini cake work in the same level as carrot cake?
Yeah, and it would be just as unpopular.
My thought on that is I think that it really just comes down to the fact that zucchinis are green colored and that you always get those little green specks in the zucchini bread. I think that the kind of golden orange of the carrots, it kind of, it integrates into the color, the texture of the rest of the quick bread, the cake. And so, yeah, it feels a lot more pleasant to eat visually, even though I'm assuming that if you were to make a zucchini bread cake, it probably wouldn't taste any different, but the appearance really has a factor.
See, now I want to try this out. But you do raise a good point. It's partially an aesthetic thing, not just internally in the cake, also in the frosting, because carrot cake, the good kind, always has those little frosting carrots on it, which are so cute and so funny. And if you try to do that with the zucchini, if you try to draw a zucchini with frosting, it would just look like a snake. And so people would think it was a snake cake and they would not want to eat it, I don't think.
100%. 100%.
I'm going to make a bold claim that I think might gain us some traction with this argument with Brian, which is I think carrot cake is the Bloody Mary of desserts.
What? No.
Yes.
No way. No way. No way. If you went out drinking all night and woke up and had carrot cake, you would throw up in a cyclone. It would be horrendous.
I have absolutely had carrot cake after drinking. I've totally done it. And it's good because the carrot is absorbent. And it gets in there with the beta carotene or whatever. If it was good, you would have eaten it while you were drinking. Okay, so I've definitely done that. I have it at my birthday. But no, like here's my case in that it's like a Bloody Mary where it has vegetables in it. Right.
Okay.
It's acceptable in the morning. Right.
And not really.
Yeah. The Bloody Mary or
if you had 1.5 on your list.
I think honestly, if you order a carrot cake first thing in the morning, you're gonna get less weird looks than if you order a carrot cake late at night. I feel like it's very much a day cake. Much like the Bloody Mary is a daytime cocktail. Like it's a kind of.
I don't think any cake is a morning cake except for coffee cake.
You know what, Max? I think we need to try a bit of a different tactic. We've tried to convince Brian by, making all these comparisons to, other foods that Brian likes, that carrot cake is kind of like, we've tried to explain the ways in which it's satisfying as a dessert. I think that rather than talk about its merits, we need to talk about carrot cake's history. Because if we
Because
can,
it never killed anyone.
well, we'll get into that. Because I feel like we need to kind of like just unveil the rich tapestry of carrot cake's history. Because I feel like if there's anything that will make you respect something, it's just knowing that there is a just vibrant and rich history kind of like that led to its sort of modern day creation, that led to, you know, its modern day existence. So
The carrot cake was invented in 1805 by Richard Tapestry
no, actually,
using real tapestries.
would you believe it, Brian, if I told you that the history of carrot cake actually stretches all the way back to 1,000 years ago, right smack dab in the middle of the medieval period?
This is like before they knew how to make a sandwich or seasoned food, right?
No,
I would believe it. I would believe it.
They knew how to make good food back in the time. So at this point in
Did
time,
they?
however,
They had a life expectancy of like 14.
well, there were a few complications. One of those complications is that at the time, sugar, as in the white granular sugar derived from the sugarcane plant, was very expensive and hard to come by. The plant originated in tropical areas such as the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, and so unless you had the means to travel to these locations, bring the sugar back to your homeland, is very tough to come by that stuff. And so back in the day, people used to get very creative when it came to sweetening their desserts. Honey tended to be a very common alternative sweetener. You also had things like sweet wine, grape syrup, and the star of today's episode, carrots, because carrots are actually pretty decently sweet by the standards of root vegetables. The sugar beet is a little bit sweeter than them, but they're still pretty decently sweet. And so it's for this reason that if you were living in the 10th century and you opened up the Arabic cookbook called The Book of Cookery, preparing salubrious foods and delectable dishes extracted from medical books and told by proficient cooks and the wise Ibn Sayyar al-Warraq, that's the name of the cookbook.
That's the name. Okay.
You would find a recipe for one of the first carrot-based desserts in recorded history, the tabis al-jazar. I'm 90% confident that's how it's pronounced. It was more akin to a carrot pudding than what we would call a cake. It was basically made with a mixture of carrot, oil, and honey. Had kind of a complicated cooking process, but it was spread on top of a copper platter, and people were enjoying that back in the day. And so over the centuries that followed, carrot pudding became increasingly popular in that particular continent, became increasingly popular in Europe. People would mix together eggs, carrots, breadcrumbs, and all sorts of beautiful, delicious things to make all sorts of wonderful carrot puddings. Brian, I'm surprised that you're not salivating right now, just learning about the history of this stuff.
It does sound good. I mean, just think back to a simpler time where you had no ingredients anywhere and you just had to use like dirt shit from the yard to make garbage to lick off a plate.
So
Sign me up.
I respect that. I like a cake that has a rough past, you know? I like a good medieval... When I look at carrot cake, it doesn't look particularly tough to me. Like, if you ask me what is the most medieval cake, I'd probably be like, well, obviously Black Forest chocolate cake, because it's from the Black Forest, which is full of, like, dudes with halberds and stuff. Dragons.
Killed a man.
Yeah.
So in the 1700s, once ovens started to become more prevalent, you sort of started to see the rise of the proper carrot cake as we know it today. It was still very common.
Did you see the rise of the actual cake, or was it still like a pudding?
Well, that's the thing. It was very common at the time that many of these carrot desserts were still called carrot puddings, even though they gradually were growing closer and closer to what we would describe as cake at this particular point in time. There was a recipe in the 1747 cookbook called The Art of Cookery Made Plain and Easy that basically delved into a particularly interesting carrot cake recipe that was kind of more, it was almost less of like a cake and more of like a pumpkin pie where you put like the carrot pudding stuff on top of that. That was like another...
I will say, big fan of pumpkin pie. Big fan of pumpkin pie. I understand that's opening up a door that you guys are going to walk through and use to beat me with paddles.
No, let's get him. Let's rush him. He's leaving himself wide open.
Brian,
I'll meet you guys there. Okay. I love earthy orange weird vegetable fruit thing that gets mashed in smithereens and put into a dessert. I just like it when it's pumpkin pie, and I eat it once a year because it's like a special thing.
Cool. So anyways, carrot cake continues to evolve during this period of time. It's largely a European food, people enjoying those carrot cakes, carrot puddings over there, but it is enjoyed a little bit in America during this time. In 1783, on British Evacuation Day, George Washington, big old Daddy America himself, went down to a historic restaurant in Manhattan called France's Tavern, and he enjoyed some of their France's Tavern carrot tea cake, which is what it was called at the time. Actually, very similar. You can find this recipe online. BuzzFeed did an article about it a couple of years ago. Very similar to modern day carrot cake in terms of how it's brought together, but you have to boil the carrots first. There's a slight little extra step in that regard. Now, here's the thing. Well, all of that I just said, that's basically Act 1 of the carrot cake story. Act 2 begins. Yes.
Real quick. Would you trust a food influencer who had wood teeth? I would not. I would not trust that man.
Do you think that's why they had to boil the carrots before they made cake out of it? Was because the president had wooden teeth?
Yeah,
that's true. That's entirely possible.
How disgusting it looked in there.
That probably
just the
did
wooden
look pretty
teeth
bad.
and
yeah.
Oof.
Probably looks like a shipwreck.
But here's the thing, Brian, you're missing the point. George Washington was still living in a timeline, living in a reality in which he got to enjoy carrot cake. Yes, he couldn't feel his teeth anymore, but at least he could use those wooden chompers to just bite into that delicious, succulent slice of carrot cake at that Manhattan Tavern that we all totally remember.
Is that place? I actually do think I've read about this before. Is that the place that used to just sell lots of turtle soup? They're just killing turtles all the time.
I didn't do any further research into it. I know that it still exists.
Like, did you read about that in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project? Because that's not real.
They time traveled in that movie, so maybe they went back to Manhattan. Nobody knows.
That is true. I bet you if they did, they'd be like, what the fuck is this food?
Act 2 of the carrot cake story begins in World War II. Carrot cake saw a surge in popularity during said war in England, thanks to Britain's Ministry of Food declaring the carrot a culinary super vegetable. And this happened for a variety of reasons. And by the way, I should mention, I consulted a variety of different sources online in putting together my dossier for this episode. A huge source was Max Miller over on the Tasting History channel. He's done a lot of fun videos in the past, making all sorts of culinary creations from yesteryear. And he did a whole big video talking about the old carrot cake. So during the Second World War, a lot of ingredients, such as sugar, were being heavily rationed by the Ministry of Food in Britain. But carrots, which we know are naturally sweet, if you've been paying attention to this story, Brian, were one of the few foods they had in surplus. And beyond being in surplus, it was also easy for most people to grow carrots in their gardens. In addition, during the Blitzkrieg, the government of Britain responded by having blackouts to make it more difficult for the Germans to see their targets at night. But it also made it difficult for people down below in the cities to see where they were going at night. Concurrently to all this, the government had come up with a cool, secretive new technology called radar. And they wanted to obscure from the Germans how it is that their fighter pilots had such, fantastic vision when flying their planes during the darkness of the Blitzkrieg. They didn't want to expose their hand, reveal that they're using this fancy new technology called radar. And so the government basically tied all these disparate ends together and began pushing this narrative that it was all thanks to carrots. Carrots are this nutrient-dense, super healthy superfood that was readily available, easy to grow in your garden, and would radically boost your night vision thanks to the beta carotene inside the carrots that gets converted into vitamin A that gives you a healthier vision than normal. In reality, yes, beta carotene does lead to vitamin A, which does boost your healthy vision. It does not give you Catwoman-esque supervision at night. That part was a little bit fabricated on their part.
I can tell because you're telling me this while you're wearing glasses. So
that's true. That's entirely true.
Okay, dude, I love this so much. I knew that thing about the radar and the carrots. I didn't know there was a connection to carrot cake. I didn't think I could like carrot cake even more, but I do now because you've managed to connect it to aviation,
right?
Anti-fascism. It's great. It's a great thing. Just
so the idea is that, yeah, carrots become very popular in England, and by extension, carrot-related recipes become very popular in England as well. They actually had a carrot mascot called Dr. Carrot and his friend Potato Pete to promote the importance of eating healthy root vegetables like carrots and potatoes. And they actually put out a recipe at the time in War Cookery leaflet number 4 that basically was Dr. Carrot's healthy carrot cake recipe, which I believe that was a recipe that Max Miller covered on his own channel. That's the end of Act 2. Now, we're going to take a hard left turn from here and go all the way across the ocean to North America and begin Act 3. But before we do that, as we all know, we love it when the MC is like, hey, in order to understand this big crossover movie, you have to have seen this other little sidequel movie, which is why we're going to the sidequel movie called The History of Cream Cheese Frosting first. So, up until this point, the carrot cakes that we've been talking about don't feature the iconic white cream cheese frosting. Typically,
didn't even have that.
They'll have other types of frosting. They'll have other types of toppings, but cream cheese frosting hasn't been invented yet because it only is invented in 1872 by a New York dairyman called William Lawrence. It happened a little bit by accident. Apparently, Lawrence was trying to create a French cheese called Neufchâtel, which is basically sort of like a brie. But he messed up the process. Yes.
He was trying to invent a gun that was undetectable to metal detectors so he could murder the president, George Washington. Unfortunately, he failed spectacularly.
It actually means new house, Brian, I'll have you know. Anyways, he screwed up the process by adding cream, and he ended up with this sort of soft, richer cheese that he labeled cream cheese.
Richard Cheese?
No, richer.
Oh, richer.
R-I-C-H-E-R. As in, you will be richer if you enjoy carrot cake and bring it into your life.
Anyways. I had a hunch this was going to be the case. I feel like the one I always go to with these like inventions you wouldn't think one would be older than the other is like umbrellas predate candles by 1,000 years or so, which looking at the two, you're like, one of these is more complicated. I feel like looking at cream cheese, it's just this stuff, it's just like creamy cheese. You're like, that's got to be easy to make. But carrot cake, you got to bake it, you got to do all this stuff to it. But they've been doing it since the Game of Thrones times. Get out of town.
Pretty much. So, began selling cream cheese for the first time in 1877. Then in 1880, Alva Reynolds, who was a New York cheese distributor, began selling Lawrence's cheese as Philadelphia cream cheese, giving birth to said brand. It was, interestingly, not produced in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, or Philadelphia, New York. I guess they were just like, it's a good sounding name for a city for a cheese, so we'll call it that. Eventually,
yes, he's a fucking biter. That's some rat beef shit, right? Like, it was invented in New York, and somebody tried to claim it was from Philly, and then we just ran with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
He should have got shot with one of those little wooden balls or whatever that they used to kill people with. That's fucking crazy. So Philadelphia cream cheese this whole time has just been New York cream cheese?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm livid.
Eventually, at some point in the late 1800s, Philadelphia begins publishing recipes for cream cheese frosting, but for a long period of time, cream cheese wasn't readily available in grocery stores, which meant that by extension, cream cheese frosting didn't really take off for a long time. But that particular movie is over, which means that we can now arrive at the Avengers Endgame of the carrot cake story, which is carrot cake's boom in post-war America, because it's only post-World War II that cream cheese becomes a much more readily available ingredient, which allowed cream cheese frosting to become really in vogue. At the same point in time, carrot cake slowly begins to pick up traction in North America. People realize, hey, we put this cream cheese frosting together with our carrot cake, and it makes a really delicious dessert. One thing leads to another. People begin pairing the two together. In 1964, the Washington Post, I believe, published a recipe for carrot cake that included cream cheese frosting, and it really picks up, and it especially picks up in the 1970s as a health-conscious fad food. This is the same point in time that zucchini bread and all these other, vegetably earthy desserts all pick up at the same time for, being healthy, not being healthy, however it is that you want to view it. And yeah, carrot cake, from that point on, continues to dominate the wide and, delicious tapestry of desserts across the globe, and especially in North America. And, we all live in peace and harmony, except Brian in the corner.
Well, I love it. So worth pointing out that the same people who thought that carrot cake was healthy at the time also thought it was good to smoke while pregnant, right? Do psychedelics.
No. These were probably
that's older.
Probably the swingers, they probably had waterbeds and did yoga, Probably
I think there was a little
cocaine.
bit of smoking while pregnant in 1964, just a smidge.
But the carrots in carrot cake, those are healthy, so those offset the smoking asbestos and all that stuff.
Where was cheesecake during all of this? Because I know cheesecake is good buddies with cream cheese, right? Like cheesecake would have been the natural conclusion of being like, how do we use this cream cheese to make a cake without inviting that weirdo carrot into this situation?
I only did 4 pages of research into cheesecake for this episode because I didn't know if it was going to be brought up, but I'm pretty certain that cheesecake originated in Germany, possibly in like the 1700s. It definitely came out of that section of the world at around that time, I want to say.
Okay, I'm gonna trust them with food over England. Just gonna do it.
Wow.
Germany didn't need a mascot to eat a potato, right? Come on, guys, fucking potatoes are awesome. You don't need commercials for potatoes. You don't need a guy being like, I'm Potato Pete, eat me all up. It's not necessary. We just know they're good.
I don't know, man. I think I'm kind of sold on something if it's got a cool cartoon character.
A character.
I was at the grocery store the other day, and they have like Minecraft branding on the pineapples, and my daughter was like, "Why is there Minecraft on the pineapples?" And I just continued to say sentences that just made increasingly less sense as I went on, and it
was like when The Force Awakens came out and they were selling like Yoda oranges. And you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so my whole thing about carrot cake has historically always been that if I'm going to eat cake just a few times a year, when I do, I want it to be like the really good cake. If I ate cake after every meal, which I feel like a lot of the eras that you've discussed, Kozibear, specifically were people that thought or maybe treated themselves to like a little bit of dessert after every single dinner, right? Or sometimes after breakfast, right? Or maybe as the midday treat, they had like a tea time and all that shit, right? The funny little sandwiches. And for me, if I'm only going to have cake like 3-4 times a year, it should be good. Also, no kid ever gets carrot cake for their birthday. No kid ever wants carrot cake for maybe Max because he was a weirdo. But most kids don't get that. They don't want that. If you got that for a kid for their birthday, everybody wouldn't eat it at the birthday party. You know,
I'll have you know, I'm skipping around a little bit ahead of my notes, Brian. But in Switzerland, it's actually very customary for carrots to enjoy carrot cake there on their birthday.
Okay,
what do you got to say to that?
They do the midsummer thing, right, where they throw the old guys off the roof.
Also, Brian, you just said a lot of words, but you didn't actually make any cogent arguments explaining why you think carrot cake is bad. You're just like, oh man, I prefer better cakes, but you didn't explain what makes a better cake.
So I don't like the consistency of carrot cake. I don't think that nuts should really have a regular place in cakes in general. I think it's like a 50-50 coin flip.
If the carrot cake doesn't have nuts in it, it's totally fine and it's perfectly okay. If I sent carrot cake to your house right now, would you eat it? Would you eat it? Brian, answer the question.
I guess I would try it for you, because here's why I would try it. Because I saw you about a year ago, and you gave me a bag of wonderful Canadian food.
That's right.
And
Yes.
Every single thing in that bag I ate or cooked with or enjoyed in various ways. And so I trust your vision. Mm-hmm. I have a hunch that maybe you guys might get better carrot cake there in Canada than I do here in America.
Interesting.
But if I was to go out right now and purchase a slice of carrot cake for myself, I imagine I would be disappointed. And that's because I would have to walk by all these other cakes at the store that's now sells sugar, by the way. And I would bring a slice of this cake home, and I'd bite into it, and I'd be like, okay, fine. But why didn't I get red velvet or black forest chocolate or whatever, like all the other ones, right? Ice cream cake. There's so many good cakes out there, and I eat them so infrequently. So when I do, I want it to be great. You know what I'm saying?
Max, I hate to do this. I hate to do this to you, but this is where the cozy heel turn in this podcast happens.
Oh shit.
See,
oh shit.
I came into this podcast telling you that I was excited and happy to talk about carrot cake, but I have a bit of a late game twist that I want to talk about, which is, here's the thing. I love carrot cake. Mm-hmm. I genuinely do. Love it very much. But I've also given a lot of thought on carrot cake and its place in society, and why it is that people like Brian really don't seem to enjoy carrot cake. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if it's not a little bit weird how widely available this boomer dessert is in modern day 2026.
Dare you?
Now listen, just let me say my piece. Let me say my piece. You walk into a grocery store, any sort of bakery, any sort of location that cakes and confections are sold at, and chances are they're going to have some sort of carrot cake product. It might not necessarily be a slice of cake. It might be a carrot cake muffin. It might be a cake pop or a packaged, version of the stuff. I actually have two right here. I was looking for a good opportunity to bring them out, and so I figure I might as well do so now. Just coincidentally have them lying around my house, And so, here's the thing. I don't mind carrot cake, but I can't help but question just how fundamentally weird it is that a fad dessert from the 1970s made with a root vegetable that lacks the obvious appeal of a chocolate cake or a funfetti or a red velvet is still so popular, so kind of ubiquitous. I kind of understand. Well, but it is ubiquitous. You might say that it's not popular.
Yeah. It's in every store because I think there are people who are clinging on to life at the very end. I think there's these coffin dodgers out there. They're pushing 90 and they still eat it with, they don't have wood teeth anymore. They just have no teeth. And they're the ones keeping it afloat. I don't think the Gen Z is out there buying carrot cake. I don't believe it. I don't think that there are little kids out there asking for carrot cake for their birthdays. And I think that people see it in the store and they know not to get it. And I think that the carrot that they put on top of a carrot cake is a warning. I think it's the same way a tiger knows not to eat a poisoned dart frog because it has a blue ass. I think it looks at it and it goes, oop, almost bought that. I think people go into a cake, if they didn't put the little carrot on top, people would get it. They bring it home, they go, what the fuck? And instead they put the carrot on top so people go, oh.
So here's the question that I want to ask the room. Would the world be in just a much better place? Would society at large be in a much better place if carrot cake still existed but was drastically less common than it currently is? Earlier in the podcast, Brian, you brought up Hawaiian pizza. Hawaiian pizza is one of those things that makes people go feral on the internet. There are some people that want it just completely eliminated from existence. And I say, look, I don't love Hawaiian pizza. I'm not going to stand up for it in the same way that I stand up for carrot cake. But would we be so angry about it if Hawaiian pizza was as common as something like, say, blue cheese on a pizza? Where chances are, if you see blue cheese pizza on a menu, it's going to be at a more, uncommon upscale establishment. You're not seeing it at every mom and pop, pizza slice place down the street.
Sure.
What if it was a similar situation for carrot cake? What if you could only find carrot cake if you walked into one out of every 5 bakeries? What if Trader Joe's was the only grocery store chain that stocked that, prepackaged carrot cake mix and it was buried deep in the back of the store? It's still there. If you know where to look for it, you can find it, but it's not so ubiquitous that your mind is going crazy wondering how does this thing still exist and how is it so ubiquitous in everyday life? Again,
no, it's a good point.
I love carrot cake, but it being easily available isn't why I love it. If we have to make carrot cake less common than it actually is to restore balance to the universe and lower Brian Altano's blood pressure by 10% or so, I'd be totally fine with it. Max, do you hate me now?
No, I think I'm with you on that. No, Brian, you brought up pumpkin pie earlier. If carrot cake had a similar seasonal, I guess, behavior to pumpkin spice,
Easter,
that would help kind of,
right? It's make it the Easter thing for the Easter bunny. Sure.
I mean, I don't eat carrot cake that often. I guess I like that it is so accessible, but at the same time, I would be more inclined to have it more often if it were such a rare thing. It'd be more of a thrill to see it.
Sure.
I call this the sort of the Ralph Wiggum Boba Fett effect, where when it was just a brief appearance in the background, you're like, oh, there's that guy. But the second they're like, here's an entire series or here's an entire episode dedicated to this character, suddenly the charm is lost. I think if carrot cake were sort of more elusive, maybe that would make it more appealing. And yeah, I mean, man, Cozy, you make a very good point where it is a boomer ass dessert.
I don't want Canadian Hawaiian pineapple ass pizza to be gone from planet Earth, because I know all over the world there are simpletons who really love it, and I also know
rats on the street that need healthy
there are rats on the street
in the morning
that don't know better before they get their tails all tied up with 6 of their sisters or whatever. I know that on many occasions where I've had a bunch of people over and we're like, let's get some pizza. There's always one guy who's like, let's get a Hawaiian, right? Let's get a pineapple pizza. And it shows up and the cheese gets crushed. The pepperoni pie gets crushed. The supreme that has even like olives and peppers and sausage and meat, all that shit gets destroyed. There's always one dumbass one that's just like, spinach ricotta, blah blah. That one barely gets touched. Nobody really fucking eats the pineapple one. I know that for sure because I've seen it. This is all completely anecdotal, obviously, but I've hosted enough of these get-togethers where I know that the loudest person in the room who has the weirdest fetish doesn't actually share that fetish with everybody else. They just have to make everybody be like, hey, what about me? And then it shows up, they don't eat it. And I think carrot cake is in the exact same boat. And I think you're spot on. Carrot cake should be in the back of Trader Joe's or buried beneath it. And it should be really hard to find and hard to get. And I think the fact that we see it all the time is a problem because it's not good.
I said earlier that it should be buried in the back of Trader Joe's. I still, like, in my mind's eye, there's still, like, a nice, like, very delicate, dainty sign in front of the carrot cake section. It's not like they're not trying to make you feel shameful for getting the carrot cake. They still want you to be jazzed about seeing the carrot cake. They don't want to make it hard to find. But, you know, it's very respectful.
I know.
I think it should be like the kind of
space.
sign. It should be the kind of sign that Bugs Bunny holds when he's in a hole.
You mean like the kind of sign that they put up at Trader Joe's that's like hand lettered with the stupid.
It's like wooden and a diagonal.
I would love it if they did have that and it did try to make me feel shame so that I felt oppressed when I got my carrot cake. I go into Trader Joe's, I get my everything but the bagel flavored everythings, and then I go to the back and I make sure no one's looking at me, and then I get that carrot cake mix and the sign says something like you should feel ashamed of your words and deeds. Carrot cake $3.99, you know, and I would get
or it should say carrot cake and underneath it would say, did you know they make better cakes? Like,
I like the idea of carrot cake being, you know, you get those variety packs of like cupcakes for a party. I like the idea that it's a sort of holographic chase variant. You know, it's the rare drop. There's only one in there, and you got to find it. You know, it's hidden in there among the red velvets and the vanilla cakes.
Have any of you ever made it? I'm not talking about from a box. I'm talking about from scratch.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, Max, have you?
I don't know. I should try.
Because I think that. So that is my promise to both of you. I will make a carrot cake. And then I can blame myself when I don't like it, or I can be like, man, you know what? I get it, because I will be able to sort of deconstruct every single component of it, and if it doesn't work out, then at least I tried.
Can I say something? I'm with you on the nuts. I'm not wild about there being nuts in it. I'm okay if there's a little bit on nuts. I'm not nuts. I'm not. Yeah. I put that in a similar category to when people put like apples and stuffing, you know. No, I realize that I think something I do appreciate about carrot cake is the texture thing, and that is at the same time I imagine what children don't like about it. And with carrot cake, sometimes you get it, it's like really like it's like a rough cake, you know. It's got like you can see the carrots. Other times they really kind of grind the shit out of it, and it almost looks more like a gingerbread or something. And you know, that totally changes it. But I remember like as a kid, you get that there, in addition to having taste buds that haven't entirely died yet from misbehavior, there is also that aversion to things that are too wild texture wise. Like I watch my kid, you know, she doesn't want to, like she's not, you know, she wants a bean and cheese burrito, not one that's got 18 other things in it. It's you're kind of trying to parse what you're putting in your mouth. And with carrot cake, it is a little bit of an adventure, you know. You're like, you bite into it, it's got a lot more grit to it than your average chocolate cake.
Grit is a good way. I think that is, I don't think if I'm completely, you know, texture averse to it, but I will say that part specifically is not doing it any favors. I will say though, Cozy, I do appreciate the history lesson. I very much appreciate that you did your homework on this. No, you did great. You did great research. A lot of it really taught me about is why it's not great. You know, like it.
Really?
No, because it is a food that is obviously built from out of sort of like hostile limitations, right? Like it was like because of the lack of this and this, they worked around and they made this. Because they couldn't see at night, they tried to eat the carrots. Because they didn't have sugar, they tried to do this, right? And so I think that like I'm not shocked that the best part of carrot cake was eventually introduced by a New Yorker. I'm not shocked about that at all, because I think that once it got to them, he was like, I got to save whatever they're doing with this.
But then he blamed it on Philadelphia to cover his ass. Was that the whole?
That was odd. That was odd. But then he let them have credit for the whole thing. Like when you go to the store now, if I get a bagel and cream cheese or whatever, and they put Philadelphia cream cheese on it, I just feel lied to.
But it's interesting, Brian. You talk about how this was a cake born out of, hostile limitations because they didn't have other means of sweetening their desserts back in the day. And yet you can't deny, again, the modern day ubiquity of carrot cake. You can't deny, its sheer level of popularity. Yes, maybe it was created out of limitations, but in, being forced to, deal with these limitations, they discovered something truly exceptional. I mean, it's, you guys do video game stuff. It's a lot like the early era of video games where, during the NES era, they had to work with very severe and restricted limitations, but those limitations allowed that, early cadre of game designers to, figure stuff out that, perhaps they wouldn't have come to as naturally had they been given a much wider berth of, technical, capabilities and things that they were allowed to do in that space.
Well said. Yeah. I mean, so the thing is, I think you mentioned the ubiquity of carrot cake, and I agree with that. But I will slightly counter that by saying that you rarely see carrot cake at the store at the same size that you'd see other cakes, and that's because people eat it in shame. I think people get individual slices of it. I think that like there's the ubiquity you have of like just a regular ass birthday cake or a chocolate cake, the size, right? A sheet cake where people are cutting it up into pieces, or the big round tall ones and stuff like that with the dripping chocolate on the side, fucking 6 Oreos shoved in there. You don't see that with carrot cakes because they make one carrot cake in the back, they cut it up into 8 slices, they put those slices in individual quarantined containers, and those are sold one by one to dying boomers who eat them alone in silence in front of a TV they can barely see. Despite
I'll have
all the
you
carrots.
know that at my 18th birthday, I had a big, huge sheet carrot cake that had Lord of the Rings characters on it, and I'm glad that you weren't at that party because we would not be friends anymore.
I was going to ask, that wasn't the Glenn Danzig cake, was it?
No, that was.
Am I
was
misremembering?
much later.
Got it.
Yeah. No,
when was the last time either of you bought a large carrot cake to share with the class?
I don't want to share it. I want to have it by myself.
Well, Brian, that's actually a pretty good segue. So this wasn't a carrot cake that I shared with the class. I mostly shared it with my family, and by that I mean I mostly kept most of it in my freezer, and I would, occasionally go into the depths and, get a couple of handfuls and scurry off into the night. So part of the inception of this episode, the reason why I wanted to talk about carrot cake in the first place is back in 2021, I was streaming stuff randomly on Twitch, and I eventually switched from streaming video games to streaming myself doing cooking related things. And I was like, you know what? I loved the Snake Quake the movie bit that you guys did on the Comedy Button back in the day. You guys never ultimately got around to making Snake Quake the movie or the radio drama or anything like that. So what if, in lieu of either of those things, I made Snake Quake the movie the carrot cake? And so I basically took 3 giant, 9 by 13 inch baking pans, made 3 giant batches of carrot cake, made a bunch of little carrot cake muffins, stuck those on the giant rectangular batches of cake, and basically made this whole Snake Quake the movie diorama where these giant gummy snakes are coming out of snake volcanoes and are attacking the cast of Snake Quake the movie. Cool Boyfriend and Cool Criminal and all those other characters were there. It was... I'm assuming we'll probably figure out a way to put in the show notes or something, but we'll definitely share it at some point if people have not seen this, because this was quite something.
That's amazing.
You know what's great about that? It does not sound edible at all, just like carrot cake.
It was very edible. It was very delicious, actually.
Carrot cake with gummy stuff in it is a maybe a bridge too far even for me, but I appreciate the effort. Cozy, where can people find you? Where can people see you making cakes and pizza whistles and all that good stuff?
Oh, man. You can find me over on Blue Sky. I am kozibear.bluesky.social over there yonder. I'm just scrolling down to page 13 of the notes to see if there are any other places I should be promoting right now. And I occasionally appear on the Respawning Fire podcast. We are live on twitch.tv/respawningfire every Monday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so you can occasionally catch me there doing fun things. I also occasionally make a couple of video games that I share on Blue Sky as well, so you can look forward to those too.
Awesome. And you have been running the This Thing Rules social media accounts and sprinkling out little tidbits of trivia, and I imagine we're going to get some great carrot cake details out there.
Yes, during the early days of This Thing Rules, Max reached out to me and was like, hey, if you want to do some fun things with the social media account, go ahead. Maybe you can share some trivia. And so every single time a new episode is posted over the days that follow, I will usually share, fun little factoids about it. For example, after the Mountain Dew episode that you guys did last year, I was like, hey, did you know that in Japan they released special limited edition Mountain Dew cans to coincide with the release of Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker on the PSP? Did you know that the fastest that someone has ever jugged an entire liter of Mountain Dew is X seconds? All sorts of fun facts like that you can look forward to on our Blue Sky account and Twitter technically as well, but I don't check in on Twitter as much anymore.
Go follow Cozy. Go follow This Thing Rules. That is awesome. I don't want to see a guy chug Mountain Dew super fast, but it is good to know that they're out there doing it.
Thank you so much for joining us and for all your hard work. And
hell yeah.
If I knew you were coming and I didn't bake a cake, and really that's on me. So I guess the cake is a lie, and let them eat cake and piece of cake.
And one last thing before we go, a very special thanks to our Patreon executive producers, Ben Burkhalter, Anthony DePiero, Paul Atienza, Kevin Lemasurier, Steve Cam, Billy McKendry, Snake, Chip Chunkling, and Nick Vaughn. Thank you all so much for your ongoing support.
Now, Milton, don't be greedy. Let's pass it along and make sure everyone gets a piece.
Okay, but last time I didn't receive a piece, and I was told that
Just
I could
pass.
Okay. If there's, I can see the cake. There's lots of cake, but there's many people. The ratio of people to cake is too many. Many people. Good festival on fire.